Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We have received an overwhelming response from this event, and our panelists have graciously agreed to allow this session to be recorded. My name is Gracie Simendinger, and I'm the president of Downtown Council. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Downtown Council, let me just share some brief information. We are one of 10 chamber councils, and simply put, Downtown Council cares about the future of our city. We represent Jacksonville's downtown business community, including major corporations, growing businesses, and startups. Our goal is to connect one another so that downtown and greater Jacksonville will thrive and prosper. We also pride ourselves on keeping you informed of local business and civic issues by bringing top-tier speakers to our meeting, and clearly tonight is no different. As you may know, tonight is the second iteration of our initial virtual discussion on race and its economic effects on Jacksonville, which took place back in July. I want to thank the Chamber for providing us the opportunity to have this important discussion tonight, and also thank fellow Downtown Council board members, Laura Edgecombe, Brian Tuttle, and Darren White for their help for this evening. In addition, I want to give a big thank you and virtual hug to Ellen Wiss, who served as a panelist of our first event in this series and jumped right in to help make tonight possible. At this time, I'm going to do a brief introduction of each of our panelists this evening. Mr. Dan Foley. Dan serves as the Executive Director and Vice President of City Year Jacksonville. Over the last 12 years, Dan has led City Year in various capacities at its New York, Los Angeles, and Jacksonville locations. He currently serves on City Year's National Senior Leadership Team and National Equity Council, and City Year's Black Leadership Response Collective. Dan is a Leadership Jacksonville alum, Leadership Florida alum, and serves on the steering committee for Jacksonville's Urban Education Symposium. Welcome, Dan. Our next panelist is Mr. Darrell Willey. Darrell is a current school board member for Duval County Public Schools. He has worked in education for the past 17 years, from the front lines as a classroom educator in the Mississippi Delta, to an education administrator in California at UC Berkeley, is also the past executive director of Teach for America Jacksonville, and is now an elected school board member. Alongside his school board role, Darryl works for Generation US as the Director of Growth and Impact. Generation US is a national workforce development organization focused on providing pipelines to careers for young adults and re-entry individuals. Darrell's work is centered on impacting communities of color with an intentional focus on sustainable outcomes for students and young adults. Welcome, Darrell. Our next panelist is Mr. David Miller. David is the Education Committee co-chair for Lift JAX, which is an organization working to address poverty in our community. David is also the co-founder and executive chairman of Brightway Insurance, one of the largest property and casualty insurance agencies in the country. He is an ongoing supporter of the United Way of Northeast Florida and has served in a multitude of volunteer leadership roles, which is really how I know him. He invested in recently he invested in the Sandy Miller Metrotown Institute, which brings youth from all over the city together to build character and develop future leaders. The program bears the name of his mother, who was instrumental in developing the program nearly 30 years ago. Over the years, David has served on a number of other boards, including Leadership Jacksonville, JAX Chamber, the Jacksonville Civic Council, and the Jewish Community Alliance. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dr. Diana Greene. Dr. Greene began her tenure in 2018 as superintendent of Duval County Public Schools, which is the 20th largest school district in the nation. Wow. Prior to becoming a superintendent in Duval County, Dr. Greene served as superintendent and deputy superintendent of instructional services in Manatee County. During her 33-year career as an educator, she has spent time as a teacher, assistant principal, and principal, as well as in curriculum development, staff development, and in numerous senior executive leadership roles. Last summer, Dr. Greene's initial assessment of Duval County Public Schools concluded in 3 major goals: improve academic achievement to become an A-rated school district, improve safety and security, and bring financial solvency to the district. Just after 1 year of her leadership, the district has made great progress on each of these goals. Welcome, Dr. Greene, and thank you for joining us. Next, we have Rachael Tutwiler Fortune. Rachael is the president of the Jacksonville Public Education Fund, where she leads the organization to help ensure every student in Duval County attends a high-quality school. Rachael began her career as a Duval County Public Schools teacher at SP Livingston Elementary School through Teach for America Jacksonville. Later, she left Jacksonville to pursue a master's degree from Stanford University. Rachael was selected a Presidential Management Fellow and served as a program officer at the U.S. Department of Education in Washington, D.C., where she managed a portfolio of multi-million-dollar Race to the Top grants during the Obama administration. She returned to her hometown of Jacksonville in 2017 to serve as Executive Vice President at JPEF before stepping into the president role in November 2018. Welcome, Rachael. And last but certainly not least, the connector of all of us, Ms. Ellen Wiss, who is our moderator for this evening. Ellen is the Vice Chair for Lift JAX, which is an initiative of business and community leaders working to eradicate generational poverty. She serves on the board of Cityr, Jacksonville Public Education Fund, Teach for America, and is on the committee for the Mayor's Youth at Work program and the Kids Hope Alliance Literacy Task Force. In addition, she is the co-founder and president of Read USA, whose mission is to ensure each child has books in their home. Read USA helps to transform the lives of children at Title I schools and community centers by providing free, brand new, high-quality books for students to grow their own libraries and to develop a love for reading and lifelong learning. Read USA also provides summer tutoring jobs to teens in high-poverty neighborhoods by providing training, professional tutoring, and teaching support to raise the reading gains for both the teen tutors and the younger students they lead. Thank you, Ellen, for joining us, for helping put on this event, and also for serving as moderator tonight. Without further ado, take it away.
Wow, thank you. This is a love fest, right? Thank you to the Downtown Council, Planning Committee, and to you, especially Gracie, for your leadership in utilizing your platform to have these important discussions that we all care about. The Chamber plays a huge role in economic and workforce development, and it's leaders like you that are listening intently and seizing moments like this to connect the dots between quality education, equity and race, and the future health of our local economy and making our city great. In my view, you and the Downtown Council of the Chamber are giving members a wonderful return on their investment. I'm really proud to be and grateful for my membership with my business and with the nonprofit that I love, and including all the nonprofits that are represented here today. And now it's my pleasure to turn towards the incredible panel of expert leaders on this topic, all of which I'm so lucky to call my friends and partners for student success, poverty eradication, and social justice. So thank you, Dr. Greene, Honorable Willie, Dan, Rachael, and David for being here. So let's get started. There's ground rules. This is a safe space. Education is such a complex topic, and there are many different items we could discuss today. Please provide, so this is for the audience, please provide all of your questions to panelists in the chat discussion or for discussion later in the program. So I'd like to first start by setting the stage for why this conversation is important. As you may know, more than 50% of Duval County students live in poverty, and it's incredibly difficult to beat the odds when you start from behind. So I'm going to kick it off here with question number one, and I'm particularly looking to Rachael and Dan to chime in first, and then others to chime in afterwards. So can you share an example of a student who is a product of our local school system and their inspiring journey to get where they are today?
Awesome. Thanks, Ellen. And thank you all so much for having me. And thanks to everyone who's tuned into the discussion this evening. I'm honored to be with you. I was actually recently humbled to have my own story featured in the Florida Times Union. I didn't previously or earlier on share my story so publicly, but sometimes, you know, we know people have preconceived notions about what should or shouldn't be possible. And today I understand deeply just how important it is for young people to understand their limitless potential. So I embrace every opportunity to share. I was a young girl who grew up largely in Jacksonville's North and East Side communities. When I was younger, my family didn't have much, but they did everything they could to give me access to the very best educational opportunities. I'm proud to have attended Carter G. Woodson, Darnell Cookman, Paxton School for Advanced Studies, Andrew Jackson throughout my own K-12 journey. But still, poverty played a huge role in how my family related to each other and what I was exposed to from a very young age. I actually got pregnant and had my first child, my son, when I was 16 years old. And fortunately, because I was equipped with a ton of knowledge and affirmed by teachers and community members who said this didn't equate the end for me, I pressed on and set a powerful vision for myself when I graduated high school that my life would never be the same. And in all actuality, I wanted it more for my son than I wanted it for myself. And so as I fast forward, I went on to college, grateful to have received a full scholarship to the University of North Florida, was privileged to serve as the director of the African American Student Union, and then to become the second Black female in the school's history to serve as student body president. And when I graduated, as was shared earlier, I had the true privilege to serve at SP Livingston, which is actually right around the corner from where my grandmother grew up. And when I left the classroom, it was to mobilize the community in support of public education. Went on, of course, and was honored to get my master's in education policy and leadership at Stanford, privileged to serve at the U.S. Department of Education during the Obama administration, and then to help lead a national campaign, Grad Nation, to help improve graduation outcomes across the country. And of course, the greatest privilege of all was to return home back in 2017 to help lead the Jacksonville Public Education Fund. In every aspect of that story, what would be perceived to be difficult and successful is my story. And we all have stories that are also powerful and so important. I share that to say that it is because of those very personal experiences and because this work is so personal that I'm really grateful and honored to have the privilege of being a part of this work today and to just continue to support our educators in transforming young lives.
Hear, hear.
Yes, wow, thank you. We are so lucky to have you, Rachel. What a story. And Dan, I think you might have one too you could share.
Yeah, I'm glad to share. And as all y'all know, like I approach our work with love. I have all the shout outs for everybody on this call. I see Cindy, I mean, everybody, like this is very nice to be with you all again, and to my team. I hope I don't embarrass you. But you know, I do need to acknowledge Dr. Greene, who's our general right now, helping us bring our kids the high quality education that they deserve, that all students deserve. No one is envious of the hours that you're putting in right now, but we all stand in awe of you and your team, Dr. Prisnar, Jackie Simmons, Wayne Greene, and everybody for the work that y'all are doing and leading our community right now. So I just would be remiss to just not shout you out. I'm just grateful for it. Of course. You know, for me, like I get to see great things come from DCPS every year. Great people come from DCPS every year because as the executive director at City Year Jacksonville, I get to field a core of 100 incredible young people to serve as tutors, mentors, and role models in our schools. And in our 8th year, more and more, we have Duval County Public School graduates, whether it be they did a year, they did college and are coming back to serve in their community. They took did some college and are trying to figure out what's next for them, or they had an experience with City Year during high school that changed their lives, and they realized that doing a year of service might be the most formative and rewarding thing that they can do. So I get to see, like, it's countless, and I know Darryl and others just have all of these stories. And I just want to talk about Kobe right now, who is one of our AmeriCorps members who went to Carter G. Woodson, like Rachael, who's a proud Trojan, graduated from Ribault High School. And after he finished high school, he realized that, you know, in his 4 years as he was moving throughout, you know, his education, that there were City Year AmeriCorps members who were rooting him on in that space. And so for him, he was like, it seems like these people who tend to be nicer than most people I've ever met in my entire life and are actually paying attention to me, honoring my humanity, giving me dignity, and telling me that I have something to offer this world. It seems like being one of those people would be a pretty good idea. And so Kobe joined us last year, not this year, but last year, and really took on the mantle of giving back to his community by doing a year of service. And I'm so glad that in this year, he's doing likewise, serving both years at Carter G. Woodson Elementary School, where he went to elementary school, providing kids that resource of love and attention that every human being needs, but especially our students right now who are trying to get their wits about them going into this uncertain time. So, you know, I wanted to shout out Kobe and tell a little bit of our City Year story through his story, and also acknowledge, you know, it is not exceptional to be a fantastic and inspiring grad from DCPS. What is exceptional is maybe how often that we're acknowledging how many of them there are.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan, for sharing, and Rachel for sharing your personal story. You know, both stories have just been symbolic of some, you know, just incredible obstacles that have been overcome, and they're so inspiring. Rachel, you had the benefit of incredible supports before some of these challenges that you could draw on to help you through and to overcome. And Kobe, fortunately, by the grace of goodness, became in contact with City Year, and look how that catapulted his and gave him supports to overcome his challenges. Now, these are wonderful stories that we all love to hear. However, they are few and far between in the general scheme of things. And so what is one major, and I want other panelists to share some stories too, but I want also to consider this question, that what is one major idea you have that might change this from the exception to the rule for all children?
Well, Ellen, this is David. It's first of all, it's an honor to be here. You know, looking and scrolling through the folks who are taking their time to participate, and so many of you are my friends, and so many of you I go back many years in volunteering and engaging in community, different work that we've done. It's the folks who have chosen to be here. You are part of the solution. I know when we look at our city, we are a city of isolation in a lot of ways. We are communities that tend to be segregated in how we live. I think many of the best communities tend to be more integrated. But when I look at my friends, Rachael, Tutwiler Fortune, and Dan Foley, and we look at so many people who are held up as success stories, there's some common threads. One is that they didn't do it alone. And number two, that the realization that none of us live in an island. And, you know, it's apparent to me as I look around the room, so to speak, we are all connected, and we have the answers here, and we're a part of the solution. But so many of the kids that Ellen spoke of, the 50% who live in poverty, don't have connectivity. They don't have a vision of hope. They don't have access to the same kinds of opportunity. And when we think of the things that we need to do, Dr. Greene, the meetings we've had with you at JAX have been incredibly inspiring. The vision and courage that you've shown in terms of thinking about these most challenged areas and saying, how can we provide a differentiated experience? Because all communities are not the same, all schools are not the same. And so how can we, as we continue to move into the future, how can we think about what it means to go to school and the experience that we provide, the services we provide, and how we can think about that differently. I think it's tremendously refreshing, and it's an honor to be in this discussion and be with you all.
Ellen, I would like to add, I would like to kind of piggyback on that. I think one of the things that, if you are asking about an idea, is that if we could have our students of poverty engage in things that they don't see every day. You'd be amazed at how many of our students have never been to the beach, and they live here in Jacksonville. I know that at some point, we had this program called Pathways, where we introduced our students to many parts of the city that they just don't get an opportunity to engage. And that is something that I think is desperately missing. As I grew up, I was a military brat. And I lived abroad and all across the United States. And I just had a breadth of experiences that allowed me to be able to assimilate no matter what group I ended up where I lived. And for our children of poverty, they only see one environment. It's poverty. They don't interact with other ethnicities. They don't interact with other cultures. They don't get an opportunity to go to the opera. I mean, I had been to the opera. I'd been so many different places before the age of 15 that, you know, I was a very well-rounded individual, and I saw the potential for my own life. Our children of poverty, it's very hard for them to see. They only see what they envision on television, and so they only think being a professional athlete or being a celebrity is the only way to have a really successful life, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. So one of the ideas that I would love is that whether corporations are able to give their employees one day a month off to go and volunteer in a school, go mentor a child, providing an opportunity so that these children can see the potential that is within themselves and what they could possibly achieve by seeing other individuals that are successful. And when I say successful, it doesn't mean college degrees, because we have many successful people who don't have college degrees, but they have chosen a career path that they enjoy, and they are able to take care of their families.
Wow. I love that. I mean, we're not talking about high-level systems change here. We're talking about actionable items that everyone on this call can jump on. And so thank you for that, Dr. Greene.
Ellen, can I add to that real quick?
Absolutely.
Real quick. I appreciate, number one, I just appreciate being on the call as always. And I think it's a couple of things. Dan mentioned it already. My man, Dan, what's up, buddy? It's like sharing the stories that Dan had and that Rachael have. We have to share these stories because these are not the stories that get published and pushed out. Like the fact that we don't know about 20 stories, that each of us don't know about 20 stories to share. Because if I'm a student and I know that someone else in my seat has done that, then it gives me all the permission and all the pathway, and it's cleared a path for me to be able to do it. So that's one, is sharing these stories. Two, yes, it is about those tangible things. And Dr. Greene always has great ideas about getting people involved, and that's why she's my superintendent. But the other piece is where I come in and where we can come in as well. It's also some systemic pieces that we have to look at. We can't always treat the symptom. We have to treat the root cause, because at the end of the day, these shouldn't be anomalies that we have students doing this. That because there are systems that are set up that are pushing and pulling in a way that we're not able to actually see as many folks pass through that filter as we're talking about. So we have to figure out whether it's policies, whether it's structures, whether it's things that are going on that we just don't really realize. And we'll get into this later on, I'm sure, in this conversation, but we have to not only treat the symptom, but also treat the root cause, especially in a town like Jacksonville, where there's a lot of history that we're still dealing with. So we have to make sure that we're looking at that as well.
Both and.
Can I just add in really quickly, because it's 5:30 and I'm kind of on one right now because we just got done a board meeting. It was really powerful. Dr. Greene talked about exposure, exposing students to potential realities for them in the future. We need to expose kids to different so that they can recognize their potential. But we also, as a society and as a community, need to definitively say, and Darrell, this is to the bigger point you were making, which is why I had to jump in. We need to say, like, do all kids have the same level of potential? Like, do we really believe that when you are born, you have the same God-given potential as every other human being that was born? And do we take very seriously the responsibility as adults and leaders to make it our duty to bring that to life? Because what we're talking about as barriers like poverty, these are not choices that children make. These are circumstances in which they're born into. And so I need to acknowledge that 30,000 foot view on this is that, like, we need to see their potential. And I think there's a lot of tactical and tangible ways that we will discuss in this conversation, but like, it starts with like owning, like, do all kids get the same opportunities? And if not, what are we going to do about it?
Love that. Anyone else want to share on this?
Helen, you're not going to get through any of your questions, I guarantee.
Actually, you know what? All of this is so important. If we only stay on one, and I mean, Gracie might get mad at me, but and I love how Dan gave a time cue there, like they know who they're dealing with here. I mean, they all know me very well. But does race or racism play a part in any of this? And
I'm happy to chime in there, Ellen, just to say, clearly since Brown v. Board, we've been trying to figure this out, like, how do we provide diverse learners in our community and our country with a set of ladders to climb their way out of poverty. I'm very grateful that, you called it what it is, poverty. Dr. Greene called it that as well. We've definitely come a long way, but we have considerable work to do. We know that disparities by race do still exist in our schools, and that's unacceptable. I love what Dan just said. That was so powerful, because if we really believe that every child is capable of maximizing their potential, then some things just shouldn't be predictable by race, for sure. We know that, there's plenty of evidence that unintentional discrimination, implicit bias leads Black boys as young as 4 years old to face harsher discipline than their white peers. And in Duval County, we see that although we have 44% of public school students are Black, they make up way more in terms of the percentage of out-of-school suspensions. And even though we've had tremendous progress on our grad rate and just improving outcomes in our public schools, we also know that we can still see, unfortunately, that Black boys are still least likely to graduate. And why is that? It's really because we have to still force ourselves to have some very real conversations that allow us to better understand our history and each other and our present day experiences and realities, and to really commit to doing that collective work to enact real solutions. And, some of the things that we at JPEF talk about, that's supporting teachers and principals to adopt those trauma-informed practices to make sure students feel safe and ready to learn, making sure we're using restorative justice practices instead of punitive practices to make sure that students truly can stay in school so they can learn, and also fostering that culturally inclusive classroom, which gives all students access to rigorous coursework so that they are prepared to succeed. I think we have to own the fact that we are setting the groundwork right now for the next generations, equity or inequity, and we all have a tremendous opportunity and need, particularly in the midst of this pandemic, to support our educators because we know they have an especially difficult job.
You know something, Rachael, I don't know that I've ever heard it said more beautifully than you just did, but you know something, you shouldn't have to be the one leading the conversation. White guys like me should be the one leading this conversation, because let me tell you, as a community, we can never reach our potential if there are groups of us who start out disenfranchised and in positions where they don't have the same kind of opportunity across the board. You and I were talking actually earlier today, And I think of it almost as mining for diamonds. If you think of our community as the people who live in our community, they're diamonds. Some are more polished, some are uncut. But we've chosen a community that has just chosen not to look at all of these uncut, tremendous opportunities and resources in terms of the human resources, the people who are not developed and they're not, they don't reach their highest potential. This is a huge problem. And it's a problem for all of us. Yeah, we see the crime and people know they don't like crime, but crime is the response when people don't have hope. And they don't have hope when they don't have opportunity. And it's when African Americans are the ones who have to lead the charge, it sends the wrong message. Sure, it affects you, but it affects all of us. And it's our responsibility to, to take that torch and speak loudly so you don't have to.
So good.
Excellent. Excellent. Oh my gosh. Like you said, we can stay on this one. The chat room is blowing up, so that's a good sign. I'm really excited to see how engaged everyone is. Dr. Greene said there's research to support high expectations of children, and then that blew up from there. Everyone's like agreed, and then Dr. Allen's suggesting on the topic of race to read a book called Nice White Parents. And anyway, the high expectations, I agree. I mean, from my own experience, turned me into an evangelist when I saw, a teacher reach a child by believing in them. And so, I don't know, I'm getting goosebumps too, Gracie. Go ahead, Rachel. Or
I think it's Dr. Greene.
Okay, Dr. Greene, sorry.
Ellen, I wanted to add to the conversation about race. It is a very complex topic because we seem to jump straight to racism. It actually starts with ignorance, and then you have bias, and then prejudice. It isn't just all of a sudden you're a racist. It's experiences that happen, and when it's at a point where it's just a bias, then no one wants to speak up before it moves to something more than that. When we are working with our teachers and we come in and we observe them, and you immediately see that you have 4 African American students in your classroom and all 4 of them are sitting towards the back of the classroom, it is at that point that a conversation should be had. Because at that point, it could just be ignorance. But if we never address the issues and address it in a way that this is about making you a better teacher and meeting the needs of all students. High expectations does not mean that you just think they're going to get it. High expectation means if I make these adjustments, or if we do A and B for some students, but other students I know I need to do A, B, C, and D, and E, and F to get you to the same location, that's high expectations. It means you're willing to adjust and do what you need to do to support students. So when we talk about race, I would never indicate that we don't have an issue with racism, but what I see many times in our schools is levels that you have ignorance, you have biases that you are allowing to dictate how you teach students. We constantly talk about that you have to have a heart for young people. You have to have a heart and love for students, and you do. But sometimes that love and heart leads to low expectations. You let that empathy for their current situation dictating how you will address this. That's not racism, that's ignorance. That's not understanding that to help them get out of their situation, you better have the even higher expectations for them. But now you have to figure out how are you going to help that young student get to those expectations. And that's where the hard work comes in. And that's when we need other partners. We need city year, because they're the ones jumping up and down and being excited, because moving students who are struggling is hard work. It's like running into a brick wall every day, and all you see is you chip off a couple pieces. You got to be willing to keep running into the brick wall until you break through.
Wow. When I was in the class, it reminds me of a veteran teacher when I was in the classroom. She's like, don't just love your kid, you can love them to an F. That's what you're going to do, love them to an F, if you don't hold that bar high. And the reason why we lower the bar is because of, not just because of one sort of demographic, because of race, but it's because of the intersections. It's like, oh, they're Black, but they also don't, they're poor, or they're a Black boy, and they don't. So we start to think about these intersections, and we can't talk about this conversation without talking about the intersections of it all. Like, it's race, it's class, it's gender, all these kind of pieces. You can break it down so far. And I think to Dr. Greene's point, you have to hold that bar high, because otherwise you can easily make adjustments. And if a lot of folks are making those adjustments, you see, once again, at the end, you're not tackling that root cause.
Excellent. All right, can we move to the, excellent. I mean, again, the chat box is blowing up. So, but I have help with that a little bit later, so I'm not gonna get distracted. But thank you for engaging here. And as you all know, this is all gonna be recorded, so we're not gonna lose any of your great ideas and questions. But Gracie's gonna be the pro to help me with that towards the end. So, next question. We are told to never stop learning, but how important are the formative years of a child? And what role does early childhood education play in student success? And Darrell, I'm gonna kick it to you with David following, and then the rest of the panel.
Darryl?
Darrell?
Am I here?
You first.
You got me?
Do you hear me? Do you
Yeah,
hear
I'm here. I got the question.
Okay.
Yeah, this is one that's near and dear to me, not only because when I was a teacher, I was an elementary school teacher, but an early elementary school teacher, but because right now I have 3 daughters, and the oldest one is in 1st grade right now. And when I think about those formative years, and if they are the most critical. They are the most critical to a child's learning. You learn your vocabulary, you learn socialization, you learn all of those things in those formative years. And we have an opportunity as a community to really embrace that. And I see it every single day. I see the differences in my 3 daughters. They're all under 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So, I mean, all of them are different, but they're little sponges, and they soak it all up. And our little kids learn millions of words by the time they're 3 years old. They may not be able to regurgitate them out, but they learn those words and they soak them in. And if you think about households and environments where you don't have a text-rich or even conversation-rich environment, you're losing out on that. That's why school is so important. That's why communities are so important. Churches are so important. Phone calls, conversations are so important to our young kids, because that's where they learn. That's where they learn. And that's where they start to formulate how to read. And the notion goes, you learn to read, then you read to learn. And if you don't understand that concept, then you will never be able to be truly successful, because that is the foundation, and that's how you're successful in all of your other subjects. And I get excited just talking about the early years, because I truly feel like we're in a place now where we have some opportunities, and I'm sure David will talk about it, and we can all talk about things in our community where we can already start to focus, because it's going to make the job of the Dr. Greenes and our teachers that are in our elementary schools that much easier if we're having every single student come in ready to go by kindergarten. And that's a goal that I'm always looking at. How do we create an environment where every single kid that is in that pre-K environment, and when they're getting ready to matriculate into kindergarten, is ready to go? You see that show up in 3rd grade. If they are not connected and ready to go by kindergarten, you see those scores adjust in 3rd grade. So I know it's important. I see it's important from my personal sort of perspective. And even as a second grade teacher, when I was in there, I saw it. I went back to the scores and saw who was ready to go for my second grade class, and I could go back to their kindergarten and figure it out. So I just know how important that is.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's real interesting. Darrell, you're absolutely on point. It is the one place where we can make the biggest difference the quickest is when we're dealing with those kids. You know, the longer you wait to intervene and to make sure that they're getting the important education they need, the harder it is. Ellen, you and David Garfunkel, I see you on the line as well. And so many of you are involved with Lift JAX. And it's a really interesting program. For those of you who don't know, it is, the idea was started by Warren Buffett back in Atlanta, in the 90s, early 90s, dealing with a community, a specific community that was one of the most challenged in Atlanta at the time. And they built a successful model for dealing with poverty. And today there are over 20 different communities around the country that are employing this model. And we're fortunate, Ellen was one of the leaders who brought this to Jacksonville, because as you know, we've tried to deal with poverty, countless times for many years. But doing the same, trying to do things the same way and getting the same result, is not a recipe for success. And so it was really wise that there was a different, we wanted to identify what model is working and how do we employ that model. And in fact, that's what we're doing in the area of East Side, where, places, organizations like JPEF, which Rachael is leading, and organizations like City Year, which Dan Foley is leading, are in the Duval County school system, which Dr. Greene is leading. These are all people and organizations, and there are many individuals who are involved in creating this safety net. But some of the things that we're doing just in the area of East Side, which are things that when you think about what are the kind of things we have to do to achieve success, you wouldn't believe, and I was blown away to understand that some of the innovative ideas that are now being employed, they're actually going door to door to have conversations with parents. Because in these neighborhoods, it's not like one bad apple and they are, find themselves in poverty. The reality is it is generational. 95% of people who are born into poverty will remain in poverty. And so you play that out. This is a systemic problem that goes generation after generation. And until someone cares enough to help and work at breaking the cycle. And, programs like that, thinking about education and what kind of community services you're bringing into the schools to be able to address these challenges that are really specific in these kind of neighborhoods, that they're not the same kind of problems you have in more affluent areas. But thinking about it in a holistic and all hands on deck sort of way is what has worked in all these different communities. And we're very excited about the work we're doing here in East Side to set, to hopefully, as we continue to achieve success, the idea is that this becomes something that we can use in other parts of the city that have had challenge as well.
Love it. Anyone else want to chime in? That was great, David.
Thank you.
Ellen, I'll just quickly say here, and 100% ditto to everything that Darrell and David just shared. I too have a little one, an 18-month-old right now, and I've been reading to her since she was in my womb. Kids come to daycare and preschool with a word gap, unfortunately, even before they begin elementary school. And I think Darrell explained that quite eloquently. I will say, just to kind of bridge what I think Darrell and David were sharing in their comments, that, unfortunately, we know that, not all toddlers and young people, babies, are able to receive the same high quality development as their peers. I'm really grateful that I have the privilege of sending my daughter to a high quality learning center, actually the same one that Darrell's daughters go to, but it's expensive. And if I could dream a little bit, I would love to see a day when high quality preschool education was universal. Unfortunately, we know that some parents, while working, have to stay home or have to, send their babies to be with family members. And it's just not the same experience as kids who are able to go and learn from those trained in early childhood education. And even as we look at where we have opportunities to intervene and to provide support and to do even more to support our K-12 schools, the greatest opportunity lies within our low-income communities, and in particular, our elementary schools. And so I think that's an important call to action for all of us. And I completely agree as well with those in the chat who shouted out the great work of Read USA that's focused on literacy and making sure that kids have access to books, because that's vitally important.
And
But once again, here's where it all ties together, because we're doing the census, and if we do not get our numbers right in the census, you take away money from VPK seats that we don't have. So it's all these things that people may not realize are affecting every day. The VPK is limited. Everyone can't get into VPK. Like you have to pay, someone pays for those VPK opportunities. But as Rachael said, it would be an amazing world, and some states already have it, where you have universal pre-K, where every single kid goes to pre-K. That is not the case in Duval County in the state of Florida. So that's but those are larger issues, but you're so right. So right.
well, and what I love is we've got education experts, the best in our city right now, sitting and talking about these issues. And then we have, David Miller, who, is a very successful, one of the most successful business people, coming to say, how can I help? What can I do? And listening and then acting on that, and which represents many of the folks in this room. So I'm really optimistic for some positive change and the business case for early childhood education. How does that factor into economic development and preparing our workforce? So that wasn't a question, so I'm going to move on. But I do have another question. Let's talk about innovation. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's talk about teacher shortages. So we've been hearing about them both before the pandemic and now. How do we combat this challenge, and are COVID-19 disruptions a factor moving forward? Dan, start with you, Darrell, and then others.
Always good to tag team with board member Willie, and it's good that we get to do that, because board member Willie, it dawned on me some years ago in a conversation with then board member Becky Couch about the important roles that City Year gets to play in the scheme of our partnership with Duval County Public Schools, and one of those is a teacher retention strategy. So before we start talking about shortages, we also have to talk about teachers who are actively serving and leading right now in our schools, and the things that are being done to keep them in seat and keep them growing and learning. And board member Couch would always remind me that having a City Year member in the classroom, having additional supports on school campuses, provides more bandwidth for teachers to do the job that they signed up to do. Now, of course, like being a teacher means you are going to do a whole lot of other things, and that is vocational and it's important, but you can't do it all on your own. And so when I go to our school partners and I visit classrooms and I see City Year Corps members working with students, or I see other organizations represented on school campuses, I recognize that we are supporting teacher retention on that school campus, which is critical. And not only that, and I feel like I don't want to answer every question as if it's like a pitch for City Year. That's we're after hours, but I'm a community stakeholder in this conversation. But what I will say is that it is part of our business to make the career choice of becoming a teacher appealing to our young people. And of the 400 some City Year AmeriCorps graduates here in Jacksonville, we have over 50 of them serving as a teacher either immediately after they did their year of service or shortly thereafter. And that is our way of contributing. Now, we want all of our members to be contributing in some significant way, but we do believe that this teacher pipeline piece that we can be a part of the conversation, but our daily work is teacher retention and making sure they have the supports they need to do the job that only they can do.
Amen.
I mean, I'll just say this, and I'm sure Dr. Greene's going to chime in, and she should, because I think she and her staff are doing a great job of really thinking about what this looks like, because this is not a local issue. This is a national issue when it comes to sort of this issue of teacher and teacher recruitment. Colleges of education numbers are down. You just are seeing a lot of different pieces here, and a lot of it has to do with the choices. If you think about when college students go into college now and the number of choices that they have, and I equate it to this. It was a story that was said, it's like just like going down the cereal aisle. So before, when you went down the cereal aisle, you had Frosted Flakes and Cheerios. That was pretty much it. If you go down the cereal aisle now, you have every different type of variety. You have all these different choices, and that's how college students are entering in. They have so many different choices and variety. So we have to figure out how to make teaching elevate the profession of teaching. And that's one of the goals that I've always had. Even when I was running Teach for America, the goal wasn't to come in and take over anything. It was to supplement and support and really understand the issues that were there. And that's exactly what we did. We worked with superintendents, and we even worked with Dr. Greene to make sure that happened, because we all know, like, it's going to take this full village, the veteran teachers, the new teachers, the novice teachers, because we are at a point now where you're seeing a number of teachers who are at that point where they're going to be retiring soon. So we're going to have to push more and more young people in. And one of the great programs that are in our schools right now at First Coast is a sort of a teacher academy. So even for students in high school who are already thinking about how to be a teacher, if we don't expose them early, they're going to make choices other places and say, I want to do this. But if you can capture them early and get them passionate about teaching early on, then they're going to come back into those schools, just like that City Member Dan mentioned, and just like some other teachers that we have in Teach for America and other organizations that are coming back because they saw something great in a teacher that they saw, and someone gave them an opportunity to get involved in something that made them say, all right, let me come back and do my part. But this is not just a local issue, but I feel like we're tackling it in a very innovative way, and we're going to continue to do that because we're going to have to. And I have one more comment after Dr. Greene talks.
Well, thank you, Dan and Board Member Willie. They're both correct. But what I actually want to share are some of the innovative strategies we have in place for our teacher shortage, which COVID-19 did not do us any favors. It was so disruptive to individuals' lives that, you know, I had to just be honest with our teachers and say, you have to make a personal decision about this, whether you feel you can do this job in the midst of a pandemic. And we're seeing the effects of people making those personal decisions. But one of the programs that we have in place is employee to teacher. Last year was our first graduating class. These of employees that we basically paid their way to college to get a teaching degree.
Wow.
So it could be a secretary, a paraprofessional. It did not matter. We even have a bus driver who came and participated in the program. I believe they are in their third year, so they have one more year to go before they graduate. We partnered with St. Leo's College and through another grant, and pretty much we reimburse their tuition, but they make the commitment to come teach for Duval County Public Schools for a minimum of 3 years. And the amazing thing is these individuals have been living and working in Jacksonville for a very long time. And so we're highly confident they're going to stay with us beyond the 3 years. The second program is what Board Member Willie talked about, we now have 2 teaching academies. One is at Westside High School and the other is at First Coast High School. These students are working at a high school level for what we call early college. So they will finish 2 years of college while they're still in high school, with the caveat that if they go to the University of North Florida, we will guarantee them a part-time para position while they're finishing the last 2 years of their college. And then they commit to come and teach for Duval County Public Schools. Our partnership with UNF, they have started a spinoff of Call Me Mister. This year, they enrolled 11 African-American males who have all committed to get their degrees in teaching. I've committed that they will have what we call an open contract. They come, when they graduate, they automatically have a job at DCPS. So we have a number of strategies we've put in place to try to fill this gap. Not only are we trying to fill the gap for teachers, but we're also trying to get more African-American male teachers into our school system to support our students. Again, this is one more way that students can see potential. If they can grow up on the north side and go to college and come back, I mean, it's very similar to Rachael's story. It's not, you can be this and you've been living on the other side of the river. This is people who have lived where you are currently living, making it to a level of their own self-identified success. And they can see that potential. But it is going to continue to be a challenge. I'm with Board Member Willie that we have to continue working on the perception of what it's like to be a teacher, that it's not considered in high esteem as it used to be. But I think it's starting to turn around because many of our parents on Duval Homeroom, they are enjoying their children being home, but they're seeing the task of or the challenges of being a teacher. And our teachers have anywhere from 18 to 30, 35 students in a classroom, and parents are seeing a challenge with their 1 child or their 2 children. They are starting to see that teachers play a pivotal role in the education of our students and moving our community. So we have to continue to support. My only concern is that teacher pay is starting to become politicized, and teacher pay is important, and we need to figure out a way to pay our teachers more to ensure that we can make the profession attractive. Unfortunately, many times when we talk about paying teachers more, we want to tie it to test scores or some form of accountability. And when people bring that up to me, you know, do you still pay your dentist if your teeth rot out? Are you blaming your dentist because your teeth didn't fix your teeth the way you want? No, this is one of the few professions that they want to tie your pay to how well who you're serving performs. And that's not generally the case for most professions. And that's just something that I constantly ask people, please think about those things. Test scores are very important. It's the way people judge us as a school district, but it is not the identity of our students. Our students do not walk around with that test score marked on their forehead saying, this is your potential. You're a level 2, you're a level 3. Because if that was the case, we might as well just pack up and go home, because we're stifling the potential of our students.
You know, universally, we say that people wish that teachers were respected as they used to be? How many times do we say that? Do we think that? And we say it as though it's something that we have no control over. But, you know, it's how we look at a situation that can really impact and change the outcome. It's how we think about it. And so by changing that and saying, instead of that, treating it as though that is a static situation, rather if we said, how can we? And so especially with the group we have here, you know, we're talking to a number of business people, we have chamber folks. You know, you think about it, what are, other than money, because money is what it is. And it's easy to say we need more, and of course we do, and we'll never have enough. But you can say, as business leaders, what can we do? You know, when you look at teachers, and it's interesting, they don't only, as you talk to teachers, and I've talked to experts, it's not always about the money. It's not just the fact that they choose, you know, when we look in some of the most challenged areas, the turnover of teachers is higher there. But there are things we can do in terms of, as individuals, we can add value to those teachers. And we can do this. We can say, as business people, we want to provide connectivity for these teachers. We want to provide access. We want to provide all kinds of support and thinking in ways that, you know, are different. They're not monetary, but they're ways that you can show that someone is respected by giving them that respect and giving them that access and giving them that support. And by setting an example that these are people who are worthy of our time, worthy of our effort, and worthy of our support, what happens is, you know, other people tend to follow that example. And especially when I think we focus our efforts on the teachers who are choosing to work in more challenged neighborhoods. It's not like they get paid any more for those kind of neighborhoods. They don't. But if they can get additional support and additional benefit and additional mentorship along the way, that's just one example of what we can do. But changing the dialogue from it just is and we need more to how can we is a step in the right direction.
Okay, bringing tears to my eyes. There's a reason I'm not a panelist here, because this is my hot button right here, is teachers. But I'm not gonna share my thoughts right now, but maybe if I have time later, I will. So thank you for that. That's, we could keep going on and on. Teachers, I will say, who spends more time with our children every day than the teacher standing in front of them? That's a heavy thought. So there's opportunity, and I love David's how can we? That's how community change happens. And it's how I got involved in passion for education. The teacher that inspired me is in South Florida, and she's on this, you know, Zoom call right now participating. Not because I asked her to, she's here because she cares. Anyway, I'm gonna skip over one question, come back to it, because I wanna give Dr. Greene some time here to talk to us about the upcoming half-cent sales tax referendum and how critical it is for the future, especially now.
Yes, on the ballot, November 3rd, will be a question about a referendum for a half-cent sales tax for improving our facilities. Duval County has the oldest facilities in the state of Florida. Our schools have not been through major renovations for over, I'm gonna say over 20 years. We have schools, the youngest school we have, which would be Waterleaf. It's between Waterleaf, I think Waterleaf was after Atlantic Coast High School, but it's been over a decade ago that school was built. But we have schools that are over a century years old. And when we had the Great Recession in 2007, that is when the state of Florida started cutting the millage rate, which is tied to capital funding. It used to be 2 mills in 2007. 2008, they cut it down to 1.75, and then 2 years later, in 2010, they cut it down again to 1.5 mils. So currently today, we lost a little over $300 million over the last 10 or so years that would normally go into maintenance of facilities. Our facilities, believe it or not, are very well kept. Our maintenance department spends an inordinate amount of time of ensuring that we take care of our facilities. But what we are doing right now is patching our facilities. Every day I am told what facility HVAC system is down, what facility has a plumbing issue. And every morning, since we started school on August 20th, I've at least had 2 schools' HVAC systems go down. And every day by the afternoon, our maintenance people have gone in and fixed the situation. But when I text back, is this something that we won't have a problem later? I 100% of the time get a text back, yes, we will have a problem later because the entire HVAC system actually needs to be replaced. And when people think about their own air conditioning system, you think, oh, $8,000 to completely replace your HVAC system in your home. When we have to replace an HVAC system at a school, we are now talking $5 to $11 million in when we are replacing. So I know people they kind of think the school system is like their personal finances. This is how you show big difference. When I have a school that goes down, for example, Mandarin High School, its chiller is down. We rent a chiller to keep Mandarin High School's system running. Because if we were to replace, and Mandarin is on, I believe, 3 chillers, so one of them's down, to replace that one chiller will cost the district somewhere between $3 to $4 million. And until we can get to that point, we have rented a chiller to ensure that Mandarin High School. Now, no one's going to know that we're doing this other than me saying it, but that is the issue for the school district. We use what I call duct tape. We figure out how to make it work and keep it working, but many of our systems, probably 90% of our systems, are beyond their what we call useful life. And so when they go down, many times we can't find parts. So we have to go get a custom part. So then we have to figure out a way to support that school until that custom part comes in. We are not being cost effective. The efficiencies of new HVAC systems, the efficiencies of updated plumbing systems will reduce the cost in the end. So right now we are actually paying more money to keep our facilities running. And the referendum will give us an opportunity through a half-cent sales tax, which 20 to 30% of that is being paid by people who are visiting the city of Jacksonville, and when they buy things here, will support our schools. This is a plan where everyone gets an opportunity to support, and at a very low cost. The average family may spend $6 towards the half-cent sales tax for our facilities. This will ensure that, one, we can address those facilities that actually need to be replaced. We have a lovely little school called Annie Morgan. Annie Morgan is 120 years old. You go into that front office and I can walk down the hallway and students 2 hallways from me can hear me because of those are the original wooden floors in that front part of the school. We can't put 21st century learning in a building that's 120 years old. So the referendum is vitally important to Duval County Public Schools, but it's vitally important to our community. It is its own economic stimulus. We will, through shovel-ready projects that will start if this passes, in January of 2021. It will bring new jobs. It will support our goal is to support minority businesses that are in the construction industry. So this is an opportunity not to just help Duval County Public Schools, but to also help our community as a whole with economic growth.
Couldn't agree more. And I thought you were going to be more restricted in what you had to say, and I was going to have to kick it over to Rachael, which I will, because she's leading this charge and really creating awareness across our community and our city, leading JPEF, and JPEF has taken this charge. So I do want you to weigh in, Rachael, but I also want to, just for the folks on the phone, just reiterate that you're among friends here with the Chamber, because the Chamber is supportive of this half-cent tax. So Rachael?
Awesome. Thanks, Ellen. And I'm so happy to tag team with Dr. Greene on this one because we have the ability to help advocate for the half penny at JPEF, and we're very proud to be partnered with the Duval Citizens PAC to help push for its success. But just quickly, this issue is indeed one of moral and economic importance. We know this conversation, we've discussed how every child deserves a high quality public education, and a huge part of that is high quality learning facilities. In this election, we have a huge opportunity to decide the type of Jacksonville we want to be in the future. Do we want all students, truly all students, to be adequately prepared in modern, safe, and secure facilities? That's the bottom line question. And, you know, do we want our city to have the economic stimulus that improving our aging school facilities will bring? At JPEF, we say yes to both of those questions. And, you know, hopefully everybody's asking themselves how they can help. Number one, vote. You know, please, you know, make sure that you don't miss the opportunity to cast your ballot, whether that be through early voting, mail-in voting, or voting on election day in November. Another thing you can do is grab a yard sign, car clings. There's all kinds of collateral. We have some at the JPEF office. So, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to me if I can connect you to that content and those opportunities. Since there are many business leaders, this is a chamber call. I also want to let you know that there are still opportunities to have big commercial signs placed in front of your businesses as well. And so reach out to us and we can help connect you to Joe Carlucci, who is sort of leading the charge on that aspect of it. And, you know, we're also, if you want to help spread the word, because we know that we have to get everyone, not only vote ourselves, but get everyone in our networks out to vote this November. It's a critical election year, and I just have to underscore that immensely. Like, we cannot not vote this year. We have to vote. We have to make sure this passes, and there are lots of other important races on the ballot as well, of course. But be a part of the change by helping to spread the word. We're conducting phone banks, and so we'd be happy to get you connected to those volunteer opportunities as well. But big supporters of the half penny, and you know, just grateful that I think among those in attendance tonight, there's a lot of people who are very well informed about this issue, and we'd be happy to have you advocate alongside us for it.
Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to turn this over to Gracie now. Gracie's been monitoring the chat box. I think she can incorporate this innovation question within from a lot of the participation here. And thank you all so much. This has been wonderful for me. So Gracie, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Wow. I'm just completely blown away. Ellen and I have been texting on the side, just, you know, watching time, and also just so incredibly grateful for the leaders that are a part of this conversation. I'm humbled to be a part of this meeting. So thrilled to help with the chat. And obviously Ellen is huge in the education space in her own right. So wanted her to also be able to chime in with some of the things that our attendees have expressed interest in learning. So I'm going to jump around a little bit because a lot of the chat was based on conversations we had earlier in the program. So feel free to, this is for all panelists to provide some insight into. This one's from Siobhan Steele. We have so many resources. However, there's a significant trust gap between low-income parents and the broader systems in play. How do we work with families to reestablish the trust?
Well, I will talk about from Duval County Public School perspective and our partnership with JPEF, the program called Parents Who Lead. That is a wonderful way for parents to support each other. You are absolutely right. There are many times that parents don't trust the system, and that's what I'm going to say, system, because many times they do trust their school, they trust their teacher, but they don't trust the system. And training parents from all walks of life to understand how to matriculate through the system. Because when you're a system that serves over 130,000 students, you have over 13,000 employees, we have to be very system driven, and it leaves little flexibility. Many parents will find out, well, that's the rule and that's what we do. But when they can connect with another parent who may have been in the same situation, that parent could say, you know what, yes, that is the rule. However, if you go to this location, or if you call this person, they can help you with how to navigate with whatever the issue is. So that's one great, I don't want to say suggestion because that is what we're doing. But the second thing is we're creating a parent advisory, especially around ESE issues. That probably is the number one complaint I get, is that I don't know what I need to do. My child has special needs and no one will help me. That advisory committee helps us figure out, okay, this is where we need to put resources to support parents so that they understand that they have a voice and this is how they can use their voice, that they are their child's best advocate, and this is how you advocate correctly. This is how you will get things done. And so the Parents Who Lead, our advisory board for ESE, and then the third, the school district has something called constituent services. All they have to do is send an email to their board member or to the superintendent. It is immediately routed through that constituent response. We have 48 hours to either respond to them that we can't, whatever the situation is, of what we're doing about their concern. And many parents constantly email me and say, thank you, thank you. Now, they think I'm the individual who actually resolved their issue, but I'm really not. But it goes through the process so that we get an answer to a parent in a short time period. Our goal is within 48 hours, every issue has been addressed. And that is the way you build trust, being transparent. One of the other ways we're trying to build trust is through this COVID-19. It is not easy to tell parents, hey, there's been a case at your school, but our dashboard is another way that parents, we want to be transparent. We want to tell them what's happening. So those are the kinds of strategies we are using to build trust with our parents. But when you are struggling with the day-to-day basic needs, you don't really have time to go through all these avenues to find help for your child. And having other parents that they can reach out to is very helpful, and it helps them solve their issues hopefully very quickly.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing up about basic needs, because that was one of the questions we had, Ellen and I had talked about, just in regards to innovation, how difficult is it for a family or, a school to be innovative when so much of, when basic needs are difficult to obtain on a weekly or daily basis. And so I just want to share kind of more of a question. There's a few specifically about mental health, and what is available for children that have trauma from poverty, and like how do we make a child whole so that this is a complex question, right? But so that when they come into school and we talk about their, you know, becoming their best selves or have their highest potential with the highest expectations, you know, how, again, this is a really complex discussion, but what, you know, I guess what is available from a wraparound services perspective so that these children who have trauma from, you know, growing up in poverty can still be successful? That's for anyone, not necessarily just for Dr. Greene. I know that's a tough one, but throwing it out there.
Well, the school district, we do have full service schools, and we train all of our teachers in mental health first aid. We have trauma-informed care training for our teachers. We are partnering with United Way. United Way is actually the lead agency that partners with other agencies to provide our therapists that are available in all of our schools. I think where we struggle is that there is still a stigma around mental health, and getting parents to, because parents have to sign that says that they will allow their child to see a therapist. We can only visit a child one time before a parent has to sign off. And we have to get over that barrier of the stigma of mental health, of providing care for our students. We need wraparound services for communities. That is where Lift Jacksonville, why I was engaged as the superintendent, because our families need wraparound services. Yes, we're providing it for the student, but what we're finding more than often is their family also needs that same level of support. And we need to figure out how can we provide more wraparound services to communities. So Lift Jacksonville is only going to be in one section of our great city, but I have many other communities that I have schools sitting right in the middle of that community, and that community needs support of wraparound services. The school can only do so much. We can provide support for their children. That is why we took over the dinner service and started serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner in many of those communities. But what we're also finding is, but they have an older brother sibling that's not participating. But because the dinner service is only for elementary, we're leaving out students. So we need wraparound services for communities as a whole. And Lift Jacksonville is headed in the right direction on doing the east side, because we wanted to be so much of a part of it that one of the schools that we consolidated, we're turning that into an early learning center. So we're going to be wrapping services with early learning for just that community. But I bet you I have at least 10 other communities that I probably need to be doing the same thing. I will stop talking now. I don't have to say anything else the rest of the night.
One thing about the mental health piece too, it's also having students build the muscle to do it. And I know Dr. Greene softly mentioned sort of this Wellness Wednesday, where students are building the vocabulary and the opportunity to actually how to talk about it. Because yes, you can have a counselor that you bring in and you go talk to, but if we can build the muscle and our students actually have that conversation and be vulnerable with each other or their families, that goes a long way as well. So these Wellness Wednesdays that are happening within the district are also important to that point. And thank you for that question, Siobhan, and others.
Great. I have another question, and then we'll kind of tie it up with everyone providing. This one's maybe a little bit tougher. And this is not for Dr. Greene, but I just want to sort of make a connection between what she was sharing earlier, which really struck a chord with me. So I appreciate you sharing about the difference between ignorance, bias, prejudice, and racism, and just kind of how there are multiple layers. And so this specific question is, kind of in relation to, households or maybe parents that carry a certain ignorance, bias, or prejudice at home that is then brought into the school system. And so we talk a lot about, bias training or things available for the teachers or, people that are involved, but, what steps can we sort of take if there's maybe some deeper rooted generational, ignorance or biases that are happening to help with that moving forward? Again, another tough question.
I'll just give a shout out to Dr. Greene, Tia Leathers, and the team at the district, kind of going back to Parents Who Lead. We've been really grateful for that partnership. I actually see Tim Rogers here as well from the Jacksonville Public Library, so another one of our core partners for that effort. And one of the things that we've been grateful to see just by supporting parents who want to lead and be change agents on these very issues is that parents who are leaders in our communities recognize this opportunity. So we had one parent who actually we just completed a blog about, so it'll probably be on JPEF's social media sites here shortly, but she really wanted to focus her project on implicit bias training for teachers. And fortunately, because there is the recognition, it was recognized by Tia, who's the Executive Director of Family and Community Engagement for the district, that there's also opportunities to support teachers in that regard. I know that she's been able to partner with that parent to help make that type of training available as well through the Parent Academy. And so I think, as we implement capacity building models or provide trainings, workshops, things of that nature, I do think there's tremendous opportunity for us to think through how we can not only make that information available to teachers who play a critical role in our school communities, but also to parents and to community partners. And I think the district, just by evidence of that one example, is definitely a critical partner in helping to do that work with parents as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. So this is a final question for all panelists, and I will include Ellen in this as well. It's no surprise that I think everyone on this call is supportive of education. We're here for you. We want to do whatever we can do to help. So it's a little bit of twofold. So what can we do to take action on some of the issues we discussed today, and how do we bring some folks along that maybe are not a part of this call, but how do we continue to, get people excited about what's going on in the education space and supportive of, the forward movement that we've discussed today?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. First and foremost, the most important thing we have to do is pass that half-cent sales tax. It is, make no mistake, this is not an, we'd like it or it would be really nice. This is a must-have for Jacksonville. We cannot afford to not deal with this any longer. And, when you think of Jacksonville, it's, we tend to focus a lot, I would say, civically and from a political standpoint on defensive thinking. We wait till a problem gets really bad, and then we always deal with the biggest problem at the time. There are two things I think we need to think about. One, this has to happen. We have to address our schools because it's probably the single biggest factor that is causing people to move outside of Duval County to other counties. And the first thing we have to do is we have to have state-of-the-art facilities, and then, yes, we have to do all the things that we're talking about. But we've got to fundamentally not think of our city as a place that is we don't invest in, because you know what? It's not valuable right now. It's not particularly valuable in a lot of people's minds because it's not valued. We need to value it, and when we value it, it will become valuable and it will become desirable, and investment will follow. And so thinking about not only schools, but also the way we think about leveraging our actual resources. I mean, we have human resources, and I talked about that earlier, that need to be leveraged. But the other piece is, we have an amazing climate. We have unique, the river. We have the opportunity now, what's happening, one of the things that, is the Emerald Trail. That is a wonderful opportunity to link a lot of the challenged neighborhoods on the north end with the urban core with Riverside, Brooklyn, San Marco, and creating development opportunities and connectivity and making it so that our community is much more desirable, investing in, you know, river access. You know, Dr. Greene talked about so many kids have never seen the beach. Most people don't ever get a chance to see the river unless they happen to be driving over a bridge. But we have this tremendous asset. And so, and we have more parks than any other city. We just haven't developed them. So by spending pennies on the dollar on things like, instead of wasting money on patching old dilapidated AC systems, as Dr. Greene said, we need to invest in smart technology and smart facilities. And we need to spend pennies on the dollar leveraging assets we've already spent a lot of money acquiring. You know, back in Delaney's administration, we did that. And now it's time, if we leverage them, we'll create a future for Jacksonville that 20 years from now, we'll start, you know, it'll be the why people are moving to Jacksonville, not the excuse why we're leaving.
Thank you, David.
I know we're out of time, but I would like to say just one thing. Just do more of what you're doing, Gracie. You're one of the leaders that is, you know, providing this platform for people to learn and share, and you know, change has to happen with this. And secondly, a single focus. I mean, I'm a big advocate for people who know me. If we are, you know, if we put a stake in the ground for quality education in our city, and the chamber leads on that, we will intersect poverty, racism, and all of the other ills in our community. But we need you know, when we're so divided into all of these other, you know, we get isolated, as David said earlier on, isolated in our lanes, and yet in all of these lanes intersect. So if we could at least come together on one focus, your passion is going to be touched, and it's going to be helped with that. So I've seen it at other cities. They've put public education or education performance as their #1 issue, and they have moved mountains in less than a decade. So I know we can do it, and I'd love to see the chamber lead on it, and I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellen. Rachel, would you like to share some?
Yeah, I just, first of all, thank you so much again. I really appreciate the invitation. What a great conversation. And I'm so excited that, you know, I've already corresponded with a few folks about getting connected to action, even following the call. So that is so powerful. I just would encourage everyone to continue to stay informed. I think that one of the greatest challenges that those who are involved in efforts to support public education and public schools have is just, I think, false and old perceptions about sort of where our public school stands. And there have been such great strides, and we've made such great progress over the last decade. And so I want to encourage everyone to stay involved, stay engaged. Someone just mentioned John Delaney. We're privileged to have him as a member of our board. I want to encourage everybody to vote for the half penny. And if you have more questions about that and are trying to understand how that will help make our city better, we're actually hosting a call on September 17th from 6 to 7 p.m. So happy to share information with you about that. John Delaney, Nat Glover, Martha Barrett, the co-chairs of the Duval Citizens CAC will all be speaking. And they're going to talk about how getting this half penny pass will help make our community better. So we're at JPEP pleased to be a resource, and looking forward to keeping in touch with many of you, hopefully. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you so much. Darryl?
Yeah, I just saw in the chat, I think Matt put something about this as a fire conversation, and I agree. And the way that you continue to make a fire burn is you don't close it in, you actually add oxygen to it, and you open it up. So we have to make sure that we continue this. We can't get complacent. We do that a lot as a people and even as a city. Like if this half penny passes, I'm sure it's gonna be like, all right, we won, we're good. No, even when Dr. Greene got elected as our first African-American full-time superintendent, people are like, all right, we're good. And Dr. Greene has not stopped a day to stop and think about that. But we can oftentimes get complacent on things like this. So we can't be complacent. We have to understand where we are and keep pushing every single day because this is critically important. Two, one tangible thing that I know right now is I'm pushing for all of the SACs in my schools, school advisory councils, to be full this year. There's SACs where you don't have to go to that school, you don't have to have a student in that school, but you can just volunteer and come in and say, hey, what are your needs of the school? It gives you that perspective that Dr. Greene talked about and Rachael talked about, of understanding what's actually happening in schools and not using the media and all these other things you hear about what's actually happened. So SACs are a great opportunity, and I'm trying to get as many SACs in my area to have as many people on them. The last is this halfpenny. We mentioned it before. The way we build trust, to go back to that question, is you create access, like Dr. Greene talked about, access to her, access to answers to questions, access to me as a board member, and then you fulfill promises. We're in a city that has not fulfilled promises over the decades to people. Even the fact when we desegregated schools, we didn't even fulfill that. We had to go back to court like 2-3 times to get that right. So we need to fulfill promises. And one way we do that is with this halfpenny. We've said, hey, we care about you as a community. We care about these schools. We care about your kids. So we want to create a conducive environment where they can learn and strive. Just like every other business you go into that has a great office and great facility, the Googles, the ViStars downtown, the Brightways that David Miller have. When you walk in, the environment feels good. You have pride. You are productive. You want to be there. And that's what it's all about for our kids. We can match what's already happening. Our graduation rates are on the rise. Our school grades are on the rise. We have an amazing superintendent. Our school board is fantastic. I mean, come on. What can you say? So halfpenny, and I'll say you can do so much digitally, online right now. Share with your friends. Like, we're in a stage right now where you can do so much on social media. Go on social media, talk about it, repost, say a little video, do that, because that's going to go a long way in educating our community to vote yes on the halfpenny. So I just want to thank you for this conversation. I appreciate you, Gracie, as always, for stepping out and always being bold in your approach, and you too, Ellen, as well. Appreciate y'all. Love in my heart for everybody on this panel and everybody that's joined the call tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to have Dan go next, if that's okay, and then Dr. Greene, you'll close us out.
Yeah, and I'll be really quick because I would be remiss to be the one of the only nonprofit executive directors on this panel to not say, so we need to vote. We need to vote. Hear that loud and clear. You need to support teachers who are doing this powerful work in this incredible school district that Dr. Greene and Darrell are leading. And if you're serious, and I've said this for years, if you're truly serious about education in this community, you need to support those nonprofit organizations that are doing the work in partnership with our teachers and with our school district every single day. City Year is one of them. It's one of my favorites, as y'all know. But JPEP's incredible, and Lift JAX, the work that they're doing. Teach for America is incredible. Communities and schools, do your homework. Find the folks who are doing the work right now and support those people, and then we can show you how else you can continue to support public education in this community.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Greene, any last words for this group tonight?
Well, first, I'm just so glad you did not put me behind Board Member Willie. He is always so passionate that I feel like I've got to come and sing some amazing Grace song to just be able to be noticed behind him. But I think the best thing that we can do is ditto to everything that everyone has said. But I think one thing we've not said is that we need to really just work to make wherever you live a better place and help the city of Jacksonville, because the school district is a reflection of its community. And if the school district is not moving in the right direction that people think it is, then I can assure you our community as a whole is not moving in the right direction. And so we need to make this a more holistic approach. It is not just what can we do for the school district. It's we got to wrap around these services. I think David said it. We have to invest in the community, because if people are leaving Jacksonville, they're not leaving. The school district might be a portion of it, but it is not completely the school district. It's our community, and we need to invest in Jacksonville. And if we invest in Jacksonville, then we're going to invest in our school district.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Greene. It reminded me of that one quote that says something along the lines of, if not here, where? If not you, then who? And then if not now, when? I mean, that is just a testament to everyone on the call just being a part of moving education forward in our city that we all love. So I want to thank all the panelists so much for this intriguing conversation. I had goosebumps multiple times of just grinning ear to ear. We have all the right people in the right slots to move us to where we want to be and need to be. So I'm just incredibly grateful for your leadership. I want to do just a couple of housekeeping things before we wrap up tonight. As I mentioned, this was a second iteration of a conversation we had in July, which was feedback we'd received from attendees. So if you want more conversations like this, fill out the post-event survey that is going to be sent out tomorrow and tell us what topics you want to hear about and who you want to be a part of the conversation. Let us know any, suggested panelists. Let us know you help drive these conversations so that we can continue, these important lessons and learning from subject matter experts within our city. So keep a lookout for that tomorrow. That will drive the, part 3, the third part of the series. In addition, Downtown Council, our next meeting is on next Friday, September 18th. We're meeting in the morning from 8 to 9 a.m. and our keynote speaker will be Alan Bliss, who's the Executive Director of the Jacksonville Historical Society. He will share with us about their plans for the new Jacksonville Music Museum at the old Casket Factory. Really interesting project coming up, and I think they're also accepting some potential names that'll be voted on. So please, if you would like to join us, that is next Friday. And other than that, just thank you. Thanks for being a part of this. Thanks for being engaged in your city. Thanks for wanting to know more. And, appreciate you and look forward to doing some more great stuff here locally. So without further ado, I'm just going to say goodnight.
Can I say one more thing? Go out and vote. People, vote, vote, vote. Vote for people you love. There's some great people on here right now that are running. Also, Cindy Pearson's on here as well. She's a new school board member, so she was listening in. But thank you, Gracie. I just had to get the vote thing out and shout out my new fellow board member.
And shout out to Read USA because I left you off the list. That's why you don't list people or things. Shout out to Read USA and Ellen and amazing work that they're doing all over the city.
Thank you all. It was awesome.
You did a great job, Ellen.
Yes.
Grace,
Thank you.